Ethan,
That's me.
do you know the catchphrase of the series?
Is it that there can only be several?
Well, if that's in reference to how many movies they made, then yes, that would be accurate to what my experience was. That's good enough.
I don't know about that.
What do you want to do, Fran? You do the intro
I
then.
don't know what the hell Highlander's about. I don't think
Well,
that
there you
intro
go. Then
will help me. Okay.
Well, we're gonna teach you then, Fran. Obviously.
I'm so glad that Fran is coming into this completely blind,
I have
because
no
this
fucking
is
clue.
this is awesome, and this is like, so Fran, this comes from an era before Lord of the Rings, but
Okay. Except
but
after.
except after. No, but it comes from an era before like the Lord of the Rings movies, before like the mainstreaming
movies.
of fantasy stuff.
Okay.
But obviously like there was still a market for it, and there were still people like trying to sell it, but they had no clue what the fuck they were doing. And so like this is the age of like, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger being Conan the Barbarian, like
Yeah.
shit like that. Like that's the energy that we're bringing today, except it I'll see, you will see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome to The Lore You Know, a podcast where some friends dive into the fantastical and often convoluted lore of the media that we grew up with, and apparently Ethan absolutely fucking loves. And here to bring you the mostly correct facts about made-up things this week are me, Fran.
Me, Ethan.
And I, CJ, have come burdened with ancient knowledges.
Despite Ethan loving the shit out of this,
Ethan insisted
CJ.
I watched these fucking movies, and I, the good boy that I was, obliged. I decided, you know what? I won't just read a synopsis. Anyone can read a synopsis. I will watch the movies in earnest. I'll put aside a little time, my precious free time. And cause how many Highlander movies could there be? I said
there can only be one, right?
There could only be one, I imagined. And let me tell you my surprise when I watched the first one and got pretty much a conclusive ending, and then was horrified to learn that there were 4 more, and an animated series, and an anime movie, and there was a non-animated series that ran for 6 seasons.
6 seasons? Seriously?
6 seasons and a movie, Fran. 6 seasons and 2 movies, Fran.
In addition to the 5 other ones?
In addition to 2 of the 5 movies are based on the series.
Okay,
we'll get into it.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. Wasn't there? Didn't one of you boys say there was like comics or
There's
something?
books
also?
and comics.
There's comics. There's graphic novels. Yes, there are, and there are some. All right. So listen, Fran. When we came up with the idea for this show, the whole you did the intro this time. That's great. I think we missed it last time.
Yeah, we did. It's okay. It's
but
fixed
the whole idea of the show was to display the things we enjoy, right? The some of the media has like goofy lore, and it's like haha, but it's fun to like live in that world. This is a series that hates its own lore. Like whenever it makes new lore, it doesn't build on top of it. It just is choosing what things it doesn't like, and then ignoring those things. And then you as the audience have to figure out what they're ignoring this time.
Okay.
So then it becomes my problem, because now it's my job to try and pick through this and say, what is the lore that you know? Because the people who made the movie sure didn't have the lore they know.
I don't think they needed
They
to.
were just making stuff up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do my best. I have to, normally we like to go in kind of like chronological story order.
Mm-hmm.
But we simply don't have that luxury this time. We have to go in the order of the way things were made, because in any other order, it simply doesn't make sense. So,
but in this order, it'll make a lot of sense. It'll be
in
real
this
good.
order, it won't make any sense, but we can at least like acknowledge what's going on here.
So my knowledge of Highlander is, one, there can only be one.
Uh-huh.
Two, I think I keep getting it mixed up with, what was that 90s movie with Mel Gibson, like Braveheart?
With Mel,
or
yes,
something?
I was
thing.
No, I was talking to my coworkers about it. They also were like, the one with Mel Gibson, and I was like, no.
Because I never saw that either. So like my cultural knowledge of either of those, they could essentially be the same thing, if not the exact.
To be
same.
clear, though,
you're saying of the two movies, there can be only one in your brain.
They're the same.
Right.
Thank
Same
you.
person.
Yeah, I think Braveheart would have been a better movie if halfway through and with no prior like advertising or anything, they acknowledged that this was not historical drama. It was in fact a Highlander movie, and suddenly William Wallace was like made an immortal who has to battle the English for the power of God.
So Braveheart is not Highlander.
Ostensively, no.
It would be.
Are they both Scottish?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yes.
Did they both?
Yeah, all right.
Like, I just reckon, like, is there plaid involved and like kilts?
Let me validate
Bagpipes?
you. Let me validate you a little bit, Fran,
Okay.
because when I was describing this to Lizzie, she was like, "Oh, isn't that a movie that like part of it is in the past and part of it is in the future?" And I was like, "Yes." And then she was like, "Oh, I don't know how those two things connect." And I'm like, "Oh, well, they're the same people." And then she was like the actors are the same. I'm like, "No, the people in the past are the same as the people in the future because they live forever." And she just went, "Oh." And that was kind of the end of it. So it didn't really hook her in the way that it might hook a lot of like 80s guys.
Yeah.
Which is who these movies are
80s
directed
men.
towards.
And me.
Exactly.
So
And Ethan.
So 1980s boomer men.
Huh?
Those
Gen Xers were
yeah,
still babies at the time.
I mean, there could have been some the early Gen Xers there too.
They would be like 10 years old at that point. I think
that would be
is, like, late
exactly
80s, right?
That's like right in there.
Is it? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. All right. We'll get into it. All right. Do you guys want to get carried away on a storytelling adventure that will sweep you off your feet to the point of you wishing, like, sweep you off your feet in the way that like a tidal wave sweeps you off your feet and you just wish you were on land again? Because that's what happened to me.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes,
you actually don't have a choice. It's sort of a contractual obligation.
Kind of how water goes sometimes. You don't really.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Fran, I want you to imagine this. The curtain opens, and we are at a WWE match. You know, there's two big, slicked up, muscly guys, and they're wrestling each other on the big stage for hundreds of people to see. Does that not get you fired up?
Sure does not, but keep going.
But it does, Fran. It gets all the testosterone pumping, and you say, "What does this vignette have to do with the rest of the movie?" And it doesn't. It's just a cool. It's just a cool way to start a story.
This is actually how we're starting in this movie.
This is a good time to point out. When I was watching this movie, I told Lizzie because Lizzie didn't watch all the movies with me. She only watched the third one with me.
Solid.
But I told her that this movie is like if a 14-year-old came up with a movie and just like had a bunch of ideas and no one edited it.
Yes!
And they were just like, yeah, keep that coming. Whatever that is, let's go.
I can get in that mindset. I can do that.
So
High
we're
school.
starting in a wrestling arena, and then it zooms in onto the crowd, and we can see Christopher Lambert, who is an actor, and people really like him, even though when he talks, it sounds like he has peanut butter in his mouth, and also he's got a always furrowed brow. So imagine, have you ever seen The
Shining?
Have you ever seen The Shining, Fran?
Nope.
Do you know the meme that people do from The Shining? That it's where he's like sitting in the snow and he's like shivering because he's freezing to death, and he's like looking up and he's like, that's just, imagine his face is always kind of like that
with the ice and everything.
Not with the ice, just like he's like always looking up under his own eyebrow.
Because that's what you do to look manly and tough, right? Because it's just really hard, CJ, for you to get that effect of people because you're so tall. So it's really hard for you to look up at people.
Right, because I'm so beta, right. Yeah, I understand what you mean, Fran. I get what you're saying. I can't. That's probably why I'm not gonna like this as much as Ethan, because I don't have that sort of manly urge. Like, you know, in Mulan, they're always, you know, they were like the manly urges, you know. But I am going to try to not make too much fun of Christopher Lambert because people do like him, and I will tell you this: he always gives it 100%. When he's on stage, he's doing his best.
Is he like a Nicolas Cage kind of guy?
No, he's more like he's
like a Sean Connery type.
No, that's a different guy, and we're gonna get to that. Who's the guy that they made the one Mortal Kombat fighter after? Ethan, you know that kind of shit.
You mean Johnny Cage?
Jean-Claude Van Damme. Yeah. He's a Jean-Claude Van Damme type.
Okay.
This is our main character. So let's
manly man, testosterone rolling. We're watching wrestling on Sunday. We're going to Monster
I just want us to get used to him.
He came from the same style and the same era as Jean-Claude Van Damme, but unfortunately there could only be one. So
thank you, of course, Ethan. And that joke will only get like 4 or 5 more of those throughout the episode. So
it's gonna be
well used, I would say. But we have our hero, and another thing I have to point out about Mr. Lambert is I have not seen him act or speak outside of these movies. And in these movies, he is supposed to be from Scotland. So I don't know if he's doing the worst Scottish accent I've ever heard in my life, or if that's just how he talks. And if it is just how he talks, I feel a little bit bad making fun of him, but he sounds like he has an accent from nowhere. Like nowhere in the world do you learn English and acquire this accent.
Well, from my understanding, this is a fantasy movie, so maybe that was what they were going for.
Maybe.
It is very important to the vibe that it like does not resonate with reality at all, even a little.
So he's brilliant, is what I'm.
Yeah,
hearing.
fuck
he
yeah.
Is of speech.
I will say, I think every actor who was in these movies did a great job. I think everyone who wrote and produced these movies did a very bad job. I'm just gonna go out and say that right now.
Did these get theatrical releases?
4 of them did.
Oh.
The 5th one was straight to TV.
Okay.
But so yeah, imagine sit in your kind of big cushy movie theater seat. This is what you're watching right now.
Okay.
Granted, it's the 80s currently, so we don't exist yet. But yeah, we zoom in on one character, and he kind of looks off wistfully a little bit, but knowingly still, as he is a professional actor and he can convey these thoughts, even though his eyebrows don't move. But he gets a feeling, so he stands up from his seat and he leaves the wrestling arena. And again, didn't have to be in a wrestling arena. That part's over.
It's for vibes. It's a vibe.
Don't think about that anymore because it literally doesn't matter.
All right.
He goes out into the parking garage, and there is another man there, and the two of them are standing between the cars facing each other. And he goes, Facile, I see you have shown yourself again. And he's like, oh, McLeod, the time is now, you fucking idiot. And he's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And he's like, oh, I think you do. And Facile, this other guy, pulls out an ornate Spanish broadsword, like with the basket hilts and everything. And upon seeing this, McLeod reaches into his trench coat. He's wearing a trench coat, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
It's the 80s. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
It's the,
of course,
of
we have
course
trench
it's the-
coats.
He pulls out from his trench coat an ivory hilted katana blade, which the hilt is shaped like a dragon's head.
I thought this was Scott. Keep going.
Yeah. So
Let's
at this point,
Doesn't
I'm
look-
pissed off. I mean, we're like 5 minutes in the movie, and I'm angry. But these two pull out their swords, and then they start going at it. You know,
Okay,
they're doing
cool.
sword fighting stuff.
Cool.
And it's
Was
the
it
kind
good?
of it's the kind of 80s sword fight stuff where it's like when you can see the actors' faces, the sword fighting's really not very impressive, but then as soon as you go to the like behind the back shots, they like get really good at sword fighting. So you're like, oh yeah, it's definitely them, you know, going at
Okay,
it.
solid.
Some highlights are McLeod chops his sword so hard that it like breaks through concrete. And at one point, Facile, the other guy, does like literally 40 backflips to like avoid him.
Dope.
He's like doing backflips,
Impressive,
and then
honestly.
McLeod is like taking cover, and he's still backflipping away from him. And it cuts to McLeod's face being all like sweaty, and then he's still like doing backflips off
Oh my
into the
God.
distance, just like making distance between the two.
This was made by a 15-year-old boy.
Literally, every decision is like that. I promise you.
All right.
That
Maybe coked up 40-year-old men in Hollywood is like a 15-year-old.
Again, I'm so stoked just listening to this. That's like you're describing it like with a little bit of like this is a bad thing in your tone, but I'm just like fuck yeah.
Okay, and by the way, I called our main character Christopher Lambert McLeod. That is his name.
His character name.
Yes, I
Okay.
spelt it McCloud in the notes because that's how it's pronounced, but it is Scottish, so his name is like McLeod, like
Oh.
McLeod.
McLeod.
But
I didn't know that's how you
so
pronounce that name.
Right, exactly. So, fun fact.
Thank you.
Anyway,
I now
the
know how to
two-
pronounce more white names. That's helpful.
The lore you know. The more you know about white guy names. Speaking of white guy names, that's going to be very funny in about 10 to 15 minutes. But all right.
Okay.
So McLeod is fighting Facile, and he, you know, they go back and forth for a while, but then he slices his head clean off.
Excellent.
And his head falls to the ground, and as his head falls to the ground, his headless body starts to glow with 80s special effects of this like
Excellent.
lightning enveloping his body and making like the neck stump glow, and then the body starts hovering off the ground, and then McLeod is going oh, and all of the lightning that's coming out of this decapitated body is being slurped. It's going all around. It's like destroying all the cars. All of the like electrical energy is like flying through the air, and it's all getting sucked into McLeod, and he's loving. He's like, oh yeah, This is an important point to note that this will happen a couple times, but the creators of this series said that this sensation is orgasmic in nature, and he really portrays that in his depiction of it. It really does.
Oh boy.
It really does read that way. I was like, is he actually doing a big O? And then I looked it up and I was like, oh yeah, he is. Okay. Fantastic.
Such a good actor.
He is the best. And so as all of this lightning gets absorbed into McLeod and all the cars explode, then it cuts away. This is another important time to note that as I was talking about with Lizzie and I, this movie cuts between the past and the present pretty much at random and for no reason. Like,
Excellent.
really, you should have just did the past and then the present, Because there's like no, like they're never like highlighting the differences. You know how like when you cut back, you're usually like showing how something came to be in the present.
Yeah.
They're never doing that. They're literally just telling two different stories, and then they're like cutting them together to make it feel like it's one like continuous story. So if you are confused, like if you don't know that much about Highlander and you are really confused about how it works, that's why. It's because it's constantly going back and forth for no reason.
Is there any indication that it is set in different time periods, or are you just
Well, yeah, everyone's dressed different.
Okay.
They don't do like present day and like past day.
Okay.
But you can like tell.
Okay.
And everyone's named the same.
Okay.
So we're in the past now. We're in 1536 in the Scottish Highlands, and there is a war party. They're all on horses, and they're getting ready to go out from their Scottish castle. And everyone's like, "Oh, MacLeod! Oh, you're the fucking best, MacLeod! Clan MacLeod, we fucking love you!" And we can see Christopher Lambert again leading this band of merry travelers, and they're going to war. Because it's the 1500s, and you know that's just kind of what people do. I have to say, I was watching this movie, and I was watching it with my headphones on, and Lizzie was just in the room next to me, and I fucking busted a gut because everyone was like, "Yeah, MacLeod, we love you, MacLeod." And MacLeod's already kind of a funny name because it's like McCool, you know how in like Scotland they have all those like fun names and stuff. And then he's like, "Oh, MacLeod, can't wait to see what you're gonna do out on the battlefield there." And he's like, "Oh, Cousin Dougal, you know me too well." And I was like, "Cousin Dougal? I hope he doesn't turn out to be a dick later." Anyway, I love Cousin Dougal. He's not in the movie very much, but when he said Cousin Dougal, it really made me happy. Also, he has an uncle named Angus, obviously. He's there as well. Anyway, all of these guys go off to war. They meet on the battlefield, and I wrote in my notes, there's war bagpipes playing in the background because it is Scotland.
Excellent.
So they are
excellent.
There are both sides have their war bagpipes fucking tooting,
going at it,
try and get the better of the other one. Anyway, there's one guy on the opposing side who's very clearly way more dangerous than everyone else because he's wearing armor made out of what I can only describe as the like bones of a demon. Like it's like he's wearing like a skull helmet, but the skull is like not a creature that exists. It's just like would be a demon.
Yeah. So once again, 15-year-old sketch of guys.
Right.
Wouldn't this?
He's like, this will be so cool and epic.
And
like,
it fucking is. Yeah.
It's awesome. Anyway, he's like, leave MacLeod to me. The rest is yours or whatever.
Classic.
And so we get the most bizarre scene I've ever seen because it is Connor MacLeod and he's walking through this battlefield and he's like, he's like trying to, I guess, square up with all these people during the battle, and they're all like, "Oh no, I don't want to fight," because they're all told, "Oh, you can't fight Connor MacLeod." So like he's literally like, he looks over at Cousin Dougal and he's like, "Nobody's fighting me." Like he literally is like, "Cousin Dougal, no one's gonna fight me." and Cousin Dougal's like, "Oh, you should come over here. There's a lot of people fighting me." Tell you what. And then the evil guy shows up and he's like, "Oh, MacLeod, I'll fight you." And he's like, "Oh, okay, finally, someone will fight me." And after all of this buildup of like, "Who will fight me? No one's fighting me." This guy rolls up in this like demon armor and he like draws his sword and then he just stabs him. And that's it. Like he just immediately is just like, "Ha, gotcha." And then all of his clansmen, all the MacLeod clansmen like dogpile on him. They don't even stab him or anything. They just like pull him off of him. They're like, "Whoa, bro, that was way too bad." And he just goes, "Oh, well, I guess we're done fighting. I'll get you next time, MacLeod." and then that scene is over.
Wait, who got stabbed?
MacLeod got stabbed.
Okay, that's okay. Okay.
Yeah, he gets stabbed, and his boys take away the evil guy who stabbed him, and then he's dying now. He got impaled in the stomach.
Okay. Gotcha.
This is the part of the movie where it like jumps back and forth between the present and the past. I won't do that because it's stupid and there's no reason to do that.
Appreciate it.
So I will just continue on, but I do have a note in here that says, just so you guys know, at every scene in this entire movie and most of the subsequent movies, every single line is overdubbed onto the original. Like, they clearly filmed it and then they dubbed over it in a studio.
No.
And you can really tell.
Oh, no.
It is, I would say, pretty obvious.
Oh, boy.
Connor McLeod's lying on his deathbed. He has his Bonnie Lass, by the way, who's like, oh, when I get back, I'm gonna fucking put a baby in you. Don't you fucking worry about it. But he's dying, and she's like, oh, my sweet boy is dying. And they're like, oh, you fucking Bonnie Lass, you shouldn't be, the last thing you hear shouldn't be the crying of a woman. Because, it's like, it's the 1500s, but it's also the 80s. So they're just, right. So they're just like, get out of here, you fucking broad. But he is dying. The priest comes and he's like, nothing more I can do. I got other guys who aren't going to die, so I'm going to go help them. But this guy, gonna be dead for sure. Cut to a new scene where all these boys are, drinking around a bonfire, I guess. But they are, there's a pale wind about them. Something's not right. And they're like, oh, it's not natural. What happened to Connor McLeod is his full name. It's like, oh no, I don't like all this. And then you can see McLeod's Bonnie Lass is there, and she's like, it's that demon in him. They put a demon inside of him. and you're like, what are they talking about? What's going on?
Oh my god.
And then Connor McLeod just walks into the room. He's A-okay. And he's like, what's going on, guys? Do you guys want to have a drink together? And they're like, oh, you better get the fuck out of here. We're pretty sure you made a pact with a demon or some shit like that. And he's like, what? I'm your boy. I'm McLeod. Everyone was like, McLeod. Like, we were all on the same page just like pretty recently. And they're like, no, you get out of here. And his old Bonnie Lass is like, oh, fucking kill him, fucking burn him at the stake. He's a fucking demon, he is. And wow. So then they're like, okay, yeah, let's do that. So then they put him in like a stockade. And he's like walking around with the hands up by his head. Mm-hmm. But cousin Angus, he's like, you got to get out of here, McLeod. Everyone wants your head. You're like a brother to me, or my nephew, or whatever. But
you're like a relative of some kind.
you gotta go, my man. They want you dead. And he's like, no one's gonna burn McLeod today. We're just gonna banish him forever. He clearly is, not right. We don't like what's going on here, so let's just kick him out and be done with it. They don't like this, but cousin Angus does, get him out of there, and he doesn't die, but he clearly has the ability to survive mortal wounds. He's a witch. What's going on there, me wonders. So we cut to fucking sucks, dude.
Fucking shut the fuck up, boys. Fucking excellent. Oh my god. I have to like we live in an age where
society
as a society we live in an age where like our media is made with like more skill and intent than ever before, and absolutely like no heart, and like just it's so like just made to be ingested, and this is
made to be enjoyed. This is to like it.
This is the shit that is just like, it's so absolutely skillless, but so completely earnest, and just like fucking like that 15-year-old who wrote this was so fucking into this and poured his whole heart into it, and it's fucking amazing.
I still think it's pretty coke fueled.
The amount
Hollywood
of
execs.
the amount of well-paid adults that were involved in making this movie makes me so furious that the boomers are like, this generation's so lazy. They don't want to work. They don't want to put in effort. All they want to make is a bunch, even though we're the most productive generation ever. And they made this kind of shit and they're like, man, kids these days, they just don't want to do things anymore.
Kids these days don't want to go outside, and then they look out the window and say, well, who are those hooligans outside?
Oh yeah, there's the guys who are like, I was out for my lunch break and I saw people walking around and I was like, you should be at work. And it was like, why were you walking around at lunchtime? So keep in mind, we are cutting back and forth from the present to the past a bunch. Mm-hmm. But at this point, we've cut to the present, and now we're cutting back to the past, but now we're cutting 5 years after the events of the last thing we saw in the past.
Okay, so he's been banished.
He's been banished, but he finds a new Bonnie Lass. A beautiful blonde woman this time, instead of a redhead, which I can approve of. And the two of them are living like they're living like off by themselves in this big like turret, I guess, like a stone turret that they like live in.
Are you gonna
you all right, bud?
No, this next part I really have to like focus all of my chakra for. Okay, so these two are living together in perfect harmony. I literally didn't even write his Bonnie Lass's name down.
It's blonde Bonnie Lass. It's fine.
I probably should at least bring it up because she is like a main character, big air quotes.
Quote, yeah.
Heather.
Okay. Sure.
Her name's Heather. So Connor and Heather are living together. They're deeply in love. Mm-hmm. Connor still doesn't really know what happened to him back then. He should have died. He didn't, but now he's been banished from his home. But he found a new Bonnie Lass and he loves her. And the two of them are happy living on the countryside. He loves living on the Highlands. He loves being a Scotsman. It's all fantastic. The two of them are rolling around in the old grass. And let me tell you, Fran, in case were,
why are they rolling around in grass?
Because they're in love, Fran.
Yeah.
Oh.
But we can't.
It's a sexual thing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's why I don't understand it.
You never want to have sex outside in the grass.
I don't want to eat outside. Like I just don't want to be out there in the first place.
All right. Well, let me tell you, there is some of that going on. If you catch my drift, anyway. They are. So this movie, because it was written by a 14-year-old, it gets really horny a lot of the time.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to gloss over it most of the time, but they do just have sex scenes where it's just full titty out.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, this is the 80s. That was totally cool.
80s.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, more of that, please.
Was the Bonnie Lass at least 18 years old?
I assume so.
Like the actress.
If it makes you, yeah, she's she's in her 20s.
Yeah, this is the 80s in America, not like in Japan. It's like, yes, the actresses were 18.
Was like topless and having sex when she was 15 on screen.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah,
no, it's gross.
I don't think it was that, but I haven't researched. But she doesn't look like a child. She looks like an adult lady.
Hopefully, she is.
But they are copulating.
Good for them. Proud of them.
Yeah, it's great for them. But as they are doing so, a horse jumps over the top of both of them.
In the grass?
And
in
the grass.
The horse just shows up? That's fucking terrifying.
And the camera pans up the horse and you can see that there's a man riding the horse.
Oh, I thought it was going to be a schlong.
And he says, if you two want to touch something, why don't you touch the pulse of the plot, which is what I'm here to describe.
Oh, okay. Once again, thought it would be a horse stick. Keep going.
What was So you thought I want to take a step
We're in
back.
Pornland now.
Fran
the horse
thought
pops up while they're having sex.
and it's
I don't know what 80s movies are like. So as far as I know, it's like 80s porn.
His horse cock comes out and he's a talking horse. He's room for one more.
No, the man is saying, "Why don't you touch this horse's dick?"
Oh my god. What? In like foreign porn where no one's speaking English, they don't even say stuff like that. That's the most unhinged thing I've ever heard in my whole life.
It's the 80s. That's just what I was expecting. That was, and it's a 15-year-old boy writing this movie on coke.
Oh my god.
The problem is, Fran, I know that the person riding this horse is Sean Connery, so I just imagined him saying that. Oh, if you like stroking that cock, why don't you give this horse a ride? All right, Fran. Yeah. Let's get this back. Oh my god, I knew this was gonna happen. Because this is what happened when I was watching the movie. I just fucking broke down. Fran, are you aware of a little series called James Bond? Have you heard of that?
Are you aware of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
No, that's...
Thank you. Okay, so you do. So you do. I actually do like that movie, even if some people
My
think
father
it's
and I
schlocky.
watched that movie quite a bit. We enjoyed it.
I liked that. Hey, I liked that movie when I was younger.
It's
The Dooku didn't take off.
Right, yeah, the Monsterverse or whatever.
Yeah, no, I mean that was like dry run at making a Marvel Universe thing, except that they were just like
it failed.
Yeah. I mean, they were like, what free characters can we use? Listen,
Dr. Jekyll.
The picture of Dorian Gray.
I wanna make. I want to make a fucking like action cinematic universe, but I don't want to spend a lot of money. Can you please get me fucking 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea?
We're gonna have to save League of Extraordinary Gentlemen for a different day.
We're fucking falling apart, brother. Oh my god.
Save it, because we're all gonna love that episode. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Stay tuned.
All right, Sean
Comment,
Connery.
like, subscribe for the
We
League
gotta
of
get back to Sean
Extraordinary
Connery.
More Sean Connery content.
Sean Connery, who is famous for being James Bond, who says that you should never hit a woman with a closed fist. All should be with an open hand. You strike a woman with an open hand, not a closed fist.
Is that actually?
That's what Sean Connery said.
Okay, great.
R.I.P. But he did say that. There's an interview. So imagine that guy. The womanizer from James Bond and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and he says you should never strike a woman with a closed fist, all with an open hand. Anyway, it's him. He's the one on the horse, Fran.
Okay. Interrupting their copulating.
And he says,
Sean Connery,
room for one more.
Yeah, did she immediately stop and just say, "Oh, Sean Connery, hello"? And then
So here's the thing. Sean Connery is famously a Scotsman.
Oh.
If you're into
think
that.
he's hot.
Yeah,
People do think he's hot, Fran.
He was a weirdly
Maybe
a
there's a reason
sex
why he was
symbol
James
at that
Bond.
time.
Yeah. No, I mean he's a hairy man. I can't deny that. So he is famously a Scotsman.
Mm-hmm.
This movie is called Highlander.
Okay.
About a Scotsman.
Is it him?
I foolishly, erroneously said to myself, "Oh, they're going to bond about being Scotsmen."
Okay.
Connor McLeod looks at him and he says, "Who the devil are you?"
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Oh, my name is Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez."
No.
In his Scottish accent.
I am the Spaniard.
I am the Spaniard.
Sean Connery, a Spaniard?
And Connor McLeod is like, "Wait, Fran," because Connor McLeod goes, "I don't need some Spanish peacock showing up here and like ruining my life." And he's like, "Well, actually, I'm Egyptian."
What? Okay, now why?
Right.
Why?
So here's where we're gonna get into it. Which
how did Sean Connery end up in this movie?
I'm gonna talk about Ramirez for the rest of the episode because I have to, but because it's troubling. I'm troubled by it. It keeps me up at night. Anyway, Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez shows up. He is Sean Connery. He says he's not Spanish, he's Egyptian.
Right.
And he's wielding a katana.
This is good showing and not telling. This is great. I definitely could have figured all this out just from seeing
He has a Spanish katana, which is all
Are you sure it's not
amazing.
an Egyptian katana?
Nope.
Oh.
As we'll figure out. Don't worry, Frank.
Don't worry about
okay.
it. Don't worry about it.
It's we are. Oh, you didn't think that there was gonna be a montage right now, a training montage? Well, you're fucking wrong, Fran. Because let's talk about it a little bit. All right.
Is it
Sean
the same katana that McLeod had at the beginning? Okay.
Yes, Fran. You're starting
That's where
to
it came
you're
from.
starting to put the pieces together.
Pieces
all right.
together. Show not
So
tell.
see,
Got it.
weird. It's like when you do the story linearly, stuff kind of makes sense when it shows up later, and it's not like, why does he have that? So, Sean Connery is rowing the two of them out in a rowboat onto the loch. That's
Scottish.
Scottish for lake.
Ah, thank you.
And
Thank you.
and he's like, you don't even know what you are, McLeod. He doesn't do that because he's Sean Connery. So he's like, I'll tell you what you are. And then he throws him off the boat. And he's like, I can't swim, because he's like an old-timey person. Old-timey people can't swim.
Oh, is that a
and
thing?
he's like, yeah.
Yeah.
People just didn't learn how to swim because...
So they just drowned?
Yeah.
You just don't go in water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, you didn't know that, Fran?
No. Why didn't people know how to swim?
Wait, Fran, why do you think they did moats?
Because then,
Right, because no one knew how to swim.
I thought it was more just like, it's just really cumbersome to try and get across that with like...
Well, yeah, if you're in
stuff.
armor, you will sink, but also people just didn't know how to swim.
Oh, I just thought it was cumbersome. I didn't think it was
like a problem.
Oh.
Pretty much only sailors knew how to swim, and not even all of them.
That seems like a skill that really should have been learned.
For what? If you're a fucking medieval peasant, you're like working the land all day. When are you gonna swim?
Yes, you
Isn't
can't.
there ponds? Are there not ponds?
No, not really.
Or fishing? Do they go fishing?
The ponds.
Why
that
do you think
there
there's
are,
all those stories about like?
You don't need to swim in a pond.
Yeah, there's all these like stories about staying away from rivers because they literally just take you away.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
See, I
that's
grew
why.
up in Kansas. We don't have water there.
Right. So, and you didn't learn how to swim.
That's fair. I actually am not very good at swimming. So
There you go. So there you go, Fran.
There you go.
Yeah,
So
you
I
know.
assumed that Scotland had like water.
Locks.
Yeah. Locks.
Well, yeah, but
hence
not
the
everyone
Loch
knows.
Ness monster.
It's just one of those things where it's like in old timey days, you can't really like take time out of your schedule to go learn how to swim.
Is that
so.
why they would throw witches in the water? And if they could quote unquote float,
Well,
they
would tie stones to them
Oh,
also,
okay.
but yeah, they just did it to kill people.
Okay, well, the lore of swimming.
There you go.
Great. Learn.
But he
something
throws
new
him.
again.
He throws him in. Connor sinks to the bottom because he can't swim, but he is not dead. He's just not breathing anything, but he's just kind of walking at the bottom of the lake.
That's pretty cool.
Ramirez reveals to him, he says, "You are special, McLeod, because you are an immortal. As am I. I'm also an immortal."
But I thought there can only be one.
Well, he says, "You see, us immortals have been living amongst the humans for generations." Ramirez says that he's over 2,000 years old, which is why he's from Egypt. Ramirez says, "McLeod, you're an immortal. You're an immortal. And I'm going to teach you how to fight good because us immortals, we've got some rules." That's right. There's a big game afoot. The game, if you will. And it is as such. All the immortals are destined to fight each other until there is only one left.
Oh.
Hence, there can be only one.
But there's literally many of them.
Right, but they will fight until there is only one.
Okay.
Now, he tells him that the experience of slaying an immortal is called the quickening. Right?
That's the orgasm we had to endure earlier.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing at this point about the quickening. kind of is electricity because he goes off onto like a bluff while it's storming and he like absorbs lightning and he's like, "Oh, you're experiencing the quickening, McCloud." And he's like, "Ah!" And he's like doing that on a bluff. But he's also like, "Focus on that deer over there, McCloud. Do you feel its heartbeat? That's the quickening." And I'm like,
What?
what is it? It doesn't matter because later, basically, the quickening is just whenever an immortal dies.
Along the way.
No, whenever an immortal dies, the quickening happens. And at this point, it's kind of like every immortal in the world kind of feels the quickening when it happens.
Okay.
So whenever an immortal dies,
everyone
all
knows.
the rest of the immortals kind of feel the quickening.
The notification goes out.
Yeah, and it makes them a little bit stronger now. Ramirez is like, there's some rules, McCloud. Immortals are immortal as long as they don't get their head chopped off. You keep your head on your shoulders, and you won't die.
Okay.
So they can suffer any amount of mortal wound, but they will continue to survive because they're immortals. Only getting their head chopped off will kill them, which means pretty much every immortal only fights with a sword because it's really the only reliable way to chop a person's head off.
You could
Fair
get
enough?
a chainsaw.
Right,
you're
but like
skipping,
a blade
you're skipping
weapon.
ahead to the anime, friend. But
Yeah,
I'm
a
sorry.
bladed. That's why even in like the future, guns don't really matter because you have to cut off the head of an immortal to kill them.
And bullets don't cut heads off, obviously.
Exactly. There's some other rules. One, not really a rule, but immortals incapable of bearing children. They're all infertile. Bummer.
That sounds like all the
I guess
unprotected sex you can have.
dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, literally that is maybe just the reason they do that. Secondly, never fight on holy ground. Which, whatever. And like...
What's considered holy ground?
Oh, Fran! Fran!
God, Fran. What is considered holy ground? God. All right, we'll come back to it later. But right now...
Oh, it's so good.
Got it.
I love when fucking lore is just
the wrestling?
arbitrary rules that...
Is the wrestling match holy ground?
No.
Okay.
All right.
Fucking
We'll come
probably
back to
yes.
it, Fran, but-
Probably yes.
We'll come back to it, friend, but I'm livid right now. I just want you to know. Third, there's this thing that's going to happen that's called the Gathering, where all the immortals that are left, there's going to be few enough immortals that they're all going to come together and they're all going to fight until there is only one left. They're going to be drawn together. Like, electrically. They're going to feel that they need to come together. And they are going to fight for what is known as the prize. And the prize is everything. It's the ultimate prize. All of the knowledge, all of the power, everything that the immortals are fighting for is the prize.
But no one actually knows what the prize is.
No one knows what the prize is, but they know that if the prize...
Thank you, Fran.
It's a yacht. Come on down. You've won a year's supply of Spam. Oh, I killed all my friends.
I mean, he also got some good orgasms in, though, so, you know.
Hell. Oh, yeah, that's great. Anyway, so for basically no reason, Ramirez is training McCloud, even though there can be only one, and presumably eventually they'll have to fight each other to the death. But I think the intention here is...
a fair fight?
Well, Ramirez says that if the prize falls into an evil person's hand, then all of humanity will kind of be doomed to, like serve that one person because they'll just be too strong.
Yeah.
And so Ramirez, who's a good soul, sees another good soul within McCloud, and he wants to teach him so they kind of improve their odds of winning the prize collectively.
Uh-huh.
Do you have... you look inquisitive, Fran. Is there something I can help you with?
I have thoughts that I can't... they're jumbled. I'll let you know.
All right.
That's exactly where you should be right now. You're doing great,
Right.
Fran.
Thanks.
So Connor and Ramirez are as brothers now. They've bonded through training and through love and life, and Ramirez is teaching him all his life lessons, and he knows all these like Spanish fencing techniques, even though he has a fucking katana, and it makes me so angry. As if you could just use one thing for the other, but whatever.
Cultural appropriation.
It's so that 15-year-old is so good. I can feel his energy, like his pure joy in his heart when he said, "But no, Ramirez won't use a Spanish sword, he'll use a fucking katana." And he thought he was the most genius writer in the world, and he was right.
And that is the main weapon for the rest of the series. I'm so angry. Anyway, how'd he get that katana? So Connor is like, "Oh, I love my bonny lass." He doesn't say that because he doesn't even have as good of a Scottish accent as I mean with doing my fake funny one. But he's like, "Oh, I love my bonny lass. I want to marry her." And Ramirez goes, "Oh, you can't marry her, MacLeod, because A, we're infertile. You can't give her a baby, and she's like a 1500s lady, and she wants you to put babies inside of her. And B, you'll outlive her. Brother, you're gonna like live forever. You can't, like, you don't age as well as all this other stuff, and she's gonna die. And I've had 3 wives, MacLeod."
Listen, MacLeod. If there's one thing I've learned, it's you can't spend your life chasing pussy. You can't chase. You can't chase.
You give them the shaft, and then you move on, MacLeod.
Question.
Yeah, yes, man.
Okay, this is probably something that'll make you angry, and I hope you'll answer it later. How did MacLeod not know he was immortal before? Or did he become immortal? Because if he was... he was born immortal? What happens? Is it like the Avatar spirit? What's going on?
As it turns out over the series of everything else that happens, immortals are always like found children. So it's always like one of those like baby at the doorstep kind of deals.
Oh, interesting.
They don't seem to
they
have
just kind of appear.
Right. They don't seem to have like parents. They're children of destiny that just kind of show up. And
so the stork brought them.
Yeah, basically. And they are they don't like have a very clear origin. So, and this is a good point to just say that like this movie is steeped in like sort of mystical fantasy. Like it's supposed to all be kind of like there aren't any clear answers. And then that's why the second movie is really bad, but we'll get into that. But Ramirez is teaching Connor, and he's saying, I'll teach you everything I know, because there is a really evil guy, and he can't get the prize. If he gets it, that's a big problem for humanity, because this guy is called the Kurgan. Now, the Kurgan, according to Spanish Sean Connery, is a group of Russians, a tribe of Russian people that were bloodthirsty warriors, some of the strongest warriors history has ever known. And there's one who was an immortal. And if that immortal were to win the prize, humanity would be donezo. And that's no good.
The Cold War can't escape.
Yeah.
Right. This movie also can't
obviously,
escape the
yeah.
Cold War. Got
exactly. It. And
can't have the Russians win.
That guy that killed MacLeod the first time in the battle, that was the Kurgan.
Oh, that's why he had demon armor, because Russians are demons?
Yeah.
And he wanted to kill MacLeod because there can be only one. The thing that he shouts as his clansmen were pulling him away, "There can be only one MacLeod."
So, how did he find him?
Because they're attracted to one another.
All the immortals are attracted to each other because they need to fight each other. Yeah.
Are all the immortals male?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously.
Until
they're attracted to each other, all right.
Until the series. Anyway. So yeah. The Kurgan can't get the prize. Ramirez says that flat out. He's going to teach MacLeod how to be stronger than even he is. And he's going to tell him that he can't be with his his bonny lass Heather, because he's had wives before, 3 of them, in fact, which I don't know why that gives him the right to be like, oh, you shouldn't do it. But he's like, listen, McLeod, I had a wife. Her name was Shikiko, which is a Japanese name said by Sean Connery. So I have literally no idea what name it's supposed to be.
I love it.
It's probably just a 15-year-old coked up boy's idea of what a Japanese name sounds
But
like.
he said, I fell in love with a beautiful girl named Shikiko, who was the... Say what you're going to say, because when I start, I'm not going to stop.
Her name was Shamaraya.
That's very close. That's almost exactly it. He says, I fell in love. I traveled to the land of Japan, and I fell in love with a beautiful woman named Shikiko, who is the daughter of Masamune. You know, the guy who made all the swords in Kill Bill.
Yeah, Masamune.
Oh my god.
And as a dowry for marrying his daughter, Masamune made me a blade like no other.
Dude.
And that is the sword that I carry with me to this day. Fucking Masamune blade.
Oh my god.
Like fucking Sephiroth.
Sephiroth.
Shanaroth. And so that's why he has a Japanese katana, because he fell in love with a Japanese woman, Shikiko, and her dad, Masamune, who is a historical figure who may have existed, but is one of those historical figures that becomes mythic to the point of, like, who knows what they did and what they didn't, which we'll get back to later again. But it's her dad made him a sword, and that's that sword, and it's very good. It's unlike any other blade, except perhaps all the Kill Bill ones. I don't know. While Ramirez is continuing to train, the Kurgan shows up. He finds them because, again, they're
attracted
all
to
drawn
each other.
together.
Yep.
It's one of those things where McLeod is kind of like gone, and so it's just Ramirez and the Kurgan, and they're at their like a turret house that they live in, and they do a big fight. And it is, so I will say, all the fights are, they're bad. I don't like them, but they're the kind of thing where, like, one person is clearly better through the whole fight, and then at the end they just lose because the plot says they need to lose.
Plot. Yeah.
So, like, Ramirez is clearly better at fighting the whole time, and he's doing quips the whole time, and he's like, oh, you should work on your footwork, blah, blah, blah. And then at the very end, though, the Kurgan, who, oh my god, I forgot. I'll reveal it later because I'm excited for that. But the Kurgan stabs Sean Connery in the back, and he goes, you know what, big boy? There can be only one. And he takes his sword out and he slashes his head off, and Sean Connery has been defeated. And he gets the quickening. He's like, oh, because, you know, be another immortal. But before he died, the Kurgan was like, who's that lady? Because he was at, you know, the house with Heather, and he's like, that's my wife. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, do bad non-monetizable things to her.
This is an 80s movie, and I'm the villain. Like, and
right, he's really a villain. And he's like, oh, when you're dead, you don't even know what's gonna happen. So cut forward. Okay, so that all ends. Ramirez is dead. The Kurgan wins. Heather is old now. She's aged. We're forward in time again.
Okay.
And McLeod is like, I'm so sad that Ramirez died, and I want to avenge him, but I'm so glad I got to spend my whole life with you, Heather, because I do actually love you, and I'm glad we got to spend our lives together, and you're going to die now. And then she says the most scary fucking thing. I was watching this movie, and she's like, I don't want to die. Like, you're going to outlive me? You're going to live forever? I don't want to be dead. I want to keep living with you forever.
Aww.
But I know that I can't. So will you light a candle on my birthday every year to remember me? And he's like, oh, I'll do that, honey.
He was like,
and then And then she goes, where are we? Where are we, Connor? And she's like, oh, we're in the Highlands, love. Oh, it's so beautiful. And then she's fucking just dying in his arms. And it's really, really sad. And it makes me very scared. And yeah. And I'm gonna keep moving through that. Because you know how like some movies are like when they have immortal people, they're like, oh, I just can't wait to die. Oh, I think it's just going to be so nice when I'm dead. Not this one. It's like, nope. It's every time you die, it's like, yeah, I don't want to do it.
Yeah. It's fucking great. It's just will you light a candle for me? Well, for a while, but then I'll forget you as you pass away into history and cease to be.
He does it in every movie, Ethan. How dare you? How dare you say that? Oh, by the way, McLeod got the sword, obviously, after.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah,
it's not.
He wields it in honor of his master.
Yeah, of course.
So, to the future of the 1980s.
Okay, future / present day.
All this happened in the past. This is all the like flashbacks that were going on. Mm-hmm. These are intercut into this, but like this is all what happened in the past. So you're welcome. That's the chronological order.
Thank you.
Enjoy. So if you remember, Connor murdered that guy.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
The police. He does this super bizarre thing where he leaves the crime scene, but he hides his sword on like, you know, the hanging light fixtures. He like puts his sword up there and like runs.
Why?
Right. But he gets caught by the police immediately. And they're like, where you running, big boy? Which like I don't know how the police got there. I guess they got there because the quickening happened and like all this stuff was exploding. Right. He was just like running away from it. And the police like grab him and like, where are you going? Huh? What are you doing? And they're like patting him down and they're like throwing him around. And he's like throwing the police around. They all have their guns pointed at them, but they don't shoot him. Like, this is the least realistic scene I've ever seen. They would just put him down. If he just started, well, yeah, I did put in my notes that like he should have been shot in the head, but he's white, so they didn't.
Yes, yep. Correct.
But I guess that's why he hid his sword, because he knew he was gonna get caught by the police.
He was like, I did a really loud orgasm back there. People heard me.
I guess. Anyway, they bring him into the questioning room. They say a lot of words you can't say anymore. I was taken aback by the scenes. They said a no F word that you can't say anymore, and that was
yeah.
Anyway,
I don't think I've heard that in media in a very long time.
So they're questioning him. He calls himself Nash now. His last name is Nash because he's like hiding the fact that he's an immortal who lives forever. So they're like, so Nash, what, you know anything about this guy who died? His head got chopped off. You know, he had a very precious sword on him. That seems like Nash, his identity is like an antiquator. He like, because he does the thing where he's like, has all the stuff that he's collected through history and he like pretends he has an antique shop, but it's actually just his stuff that he has collected. They're like, he had a really precious sword. Maybe you wanted that sword, but it's like the sword was at the crime scene, you fucking idiot. Like, well, what do you think I was doing? But he gets questioned by the police and they just let him go because I guess they don't have enough evidence, which is like, it's the NYPD. They're going to like rough him up, I guess, but he just gets up and leave.
Oh, it's a guy needs white.
Another thing that happened in the past that doesn't really matter too much, but he lived through World War II, obviously. When he was in World War II, he was just like walking around through Europe, I guess. And there was this little girl who was like misplaced by the war. And then he's like, oh, don't worry, I'll take care of you because I'm a good guy. And then a Nazi shows up and like, you know, fills him full of lead. And then he just gets up off the ground and takes his gun and like shoots the Nazi. And he was like, get fucked, Nazi, because fuck yeah,
good.
You know,
good shit.
Kill Nazis. It's awesome. But
we
then
need
the
more
little
of that
girl,
propaganda again.
The little girl that he saved grew up and is now his like secretary, and she knows that he's an immortal. But she's like helping to try and keep a secret, you know, because she owes him a life debt or whatever. But so he goes back to his like collection I guess, his antique store, but he doesn't really sell anything. Anyway, there's one crime scene investigator, Brenda Wyatt, and she's like on the case. She like picked a little metal out of the concrete. Remember I said he like chopped through the concrete with his samurai sword? She like picks the metal out and she's like, this metal is folded 200 times. Like it says that. She's like, this is a Masamune blade.
I've seen 4 cases like this before as fucking Masamune blades.
And so she's like really suspicious, right? And so she's following this Nash guy to try to figure out what's going on. Meanwhile, in the background, the Kurgan is also now in New York. Because as we see as
armor?
No, now he doesn't have demon armor. Now he has like goth boy armor. He's wearing like
oh god.
He's wearing like chainmail. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's wearing like he's wearing chainmail that goes over like his shoulder, and he's got like leather daddy stuff on.
All right.
He checks into like a super skeezy hotel. Oh, this is a good point to mention, Fran. A prostitute gets sent to his hotel, and he's like, I'm gonna do sex on her because there's a lot of sex scenes in this movie.
Yeah.
Played by the Clancy man, Mr. Krabs himself. So if you want to see
the prostitute.
No, the Kurgan the whole time.
Oh, got it.
The guy who's all about R word and pillaging and doing murders and fucking whores.
Mr. Krabs. Got it.
Mr. Krabs. All right, he goes, I'm gonna fuck this whore. SpongeBob, me boy, let me cock ye. No, he does a really good job, but I think he has distanced himself a little from his old roles, and he never reprised his role as the Kurgan, even though they asked him to. So
he said no.
He does well, and later in the movie, he's like, "Oh, McLeod, I did some terrible things to your master. I did an unconsensual crime to your master's lady." And then McLeod had like a weird look on his face.
Moment.
He's like, "Oh, that was your lady that I did an unconsensual bad word to, wasn't it, McLeod? And she didn't even tell you. Oh, I'm big dicking you right now. You've been cucked, McLeod." And it's Mr. Krabs. It's fucking insane. The 80s is fucking wild, dude.
Love it.
Anyway, so McLeod is realizing that the gathering
is Mr. Krabs. No.
Well, yeah, he does realize that, but he is understanding that the gathering is among him. You know, it's the final days. Seems that as though the 1980s is the time.
It's the end of time. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was 2012 or 2000.
No, it was definitely the 80s.
McLeod meets another one of his friends who's like an Afrikaans warrior, and they hang out for a while, but he just dies to the Kurgan. He just exists to get fucked up.
Yes, obviously.
But basically, the gathering is happening right now, and so the movie unfurls, and
in New York. Is that where they are?
Yes, in New York City, and this Brenda Wyatt is like chasing down the truth. Eventually, she figures out that Connor McLeod is the only McLeod from the clan to like survive. She like sees all of these McLeods through history, and then she's learning like, oh, actually, it's the same guy. He just keeps showing up over and over. And he has taken on this name Nash, which. So sometimes immortals take different names depending on where they are. So we can infer that Ramirez decided he was living in Spain for a while, and so he decided his new name was Ramirez. So at some point, he renamed himself to Ramirez.
Okay.
Is a thing that we're thinking right now.
Okay.
Great.
But yes.
Well, yeah, but he's dead now. Anyway, she figures out that here's another thing that happens every time. Whenever a lady figures out that McLeod is like immortal, she gets real horny and they have sex.
Yeah. Including the daughter character? That's a secretary?
No, they never.
Okay.
No, they never.
Okay,
They
good.
never.
Good.
It
'cause
does.
that
I
would be
mean, they
weird.
never. No, they never show that at the
Okay.
very least. No, basically, whenever a lady is like, "You've lived for 1,000 years," then like literally without another single word, they just
Yeah.
start doing the sex.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you
Yeah,
know,
I
like
mean, I don't know what I would do if I figured that out about a man. Honestly,
it's
Probably get undressed.
yeah,
I don't know.
probably.
apparently.
It's like
It's
older
that compelling.
old
I know
yeah,
I would.
yeah, older men are very attractive, and then like that much older, it's compelling.
An impossible amount of attractiveness. Anyway, the gathering has happened. Basically, the only two people left are the Kurgan and McLeod, which is, obviously what we were building up to. And so the two of them kind of meet. They go, McLeod is in a church, and the Kurgan shows up, and he does about a lot of crass things in church. You wouldn't normally do such things in church.
So does the church not count as holy ground?
It does. So they're not fighting
Oh,
each
okay.
other.
Got it.
They're just talking to each other.
You can
Okay.
say a lot
We're
of
having a
no
said-
words in the
and
church,
he says,
but
"Oh, remember the rules." Yeah, you really can. You really can say it. Yeah, you really do. But he says, "Remember the rules, McLeod. No fighting on holy ground." And McLeod's like really angry about it. But then so all of these movies end in sort of an industrial, like empty industrial building where they just kind of like fight through. And that's kind of what happens here. They meet up in a building, they fight for a long time. And again, it does that thing where the Kurgan is winning the whole fight. Like no issues. He should just be the victor. But then at the end, McLeod slices his head off with his master's katana, and he gets the final quickening. And he goes, "Oh, oh!" And then he goes, "Wait, what is the line?" Ethan, you do the line.
He says, "I know everything. I am everything." Oh.
Yeah, Ethan said it. We didn't hear it because Discord cut out. Like, I am everything.
Yeah, sorry, I got into my orgasm voice and it was a little too high pitched for it.
No, that'll be perfect for the show. So we learned that Sean Connery has a voiceover now, and he says, "That's right, McLeod. The prize is understanding everything. It's the experience of all living things put into you. You can understand everyone's thoughts, emotions, feelings, desires, and you can use this ability to shape reality however you want it to. You can make the human race, you could wipe out the human race, or you could make it better forever. You are at one with everything that is alive, with the entire universe. You have infinite knowledge, and using this knowledge, you can become mortal. You can allow yourself to live and die and have children and live a mortal life." And he's like, "Great, I love that, because I want to bone up this new lady, because I just met this new lady,
yeah.
but yeah, I met this new lady, and we had a little bit of sex, and we saw it." And Lizzie said during the sex scenes, they do that thing where they like arch their back a lot, but like too much, like they're constantly like, "Ah!" as if they're like, I don't know what that is. I ain't never seen that in all my days, but maybe I'm just not very good at sex, I guess. But
I mean, you're not immortal.
I'm not.
That's
in many ways,
and that's such a turn off. Like, I gotta.
Yeah, that's such a beta move. You're gonna die
it's
one
a real
day.
mood killer. Yeah.
Outrageous. But he gains the prize, and all the immortals are dead, and they're inside of him, and he is the victor, and he's the last immortal. He says, "There can be only one," and that is actually how he talks. That was like a perfect.
That was really good.
Christopher Lambert voice, and then it's over. He, one final big shock. And the implication is he uses his knowledge to further humanity.
Yeah, he uses his knowledge to influence Ronald Reagan, who then tears down the wall.
That's an interesting thought you had there, Connor McLeod. Well, I suppose.
As your
Maybe the
no.
pores are people.
with your guidance, we'll make a world of peace and prosperity and capitalism, the three goods of this world.
Did
So-
that actually happen in this movie?
I mean,
So here's-
spiritually.
Okay.
Here's the thing, Fran. And
Okay.
I was ranting and raving at the beginning.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to spend most of the time on the main source material, I'll say. This is probably the source material.
Mhm.
Let's talk about what comes next.
Yeah, if there can only be one, how in the world are there 4 more movies, 2 of which being after an entire TV series?
Oh, Fran.
this-
oh,
is
bless
Are
your
these
heart.
flashbacks or do
Fran.
more Highlanders happen?
Oh, friend, bless your sweet
Also,
heart.
why are they called? Okay, pardon.
What are you-
So,
what are-
is it called
what
the
are-
Highlander because he is from the Highlands?
Yeah.
Is that why this is?
Yes.
Has nothing to do with the whole
He's-
immortal titles or anything like
He is the Highlander.
that. Who is
Everyone
also
calls
the one.
everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone calls him Highlander.
Yeah, it's just
That's the
like
only-
the villain
It's
is
like
the
his code
Kurgan.
name. Okay.
Right, the Kurgan. That's
Got
not
it.
his real name, but yeah, that's
Got it. They don't call him Connor.
Fran. That I knew there was a reason we did a podcast together. God damn, can you do a segue?
Happy to help. Did Sean Connery's character come up with a Japanese name for himself when he had that Japanese wife and he got his blade from Masamune name?
you,
All
And
right.
if
you
so,
may,
what would it be?
you may call me Shashke.
I'm from the Hidden Leaf clan. I'm from Clan Hidden Leaf.
I
right,
will
do you
use
guys
my Sharingan. And everybody looks at did he pronounce that right? He's like, yeah, oh yes, that's my Sharingan.
my Sean Ringan. Fucking hell! All right. do you guys want to know what happens in the other ones?
Of course.
I want to
So-
know.
CJ, how could that happen?
Yeah, I want to know though, CJ, can I make a Sean Connery with a Sharingan for the thumbnail for this, please?
If this doesn't have a thumbnail of a Sean Ringan, are you gonna put it in his eyes? The most bizarre part of that is we already have a thumbnail that is like that with Patrick Star. We already talked about Mr. Krabs. Oh my God.
You gonna make it?
All right.
Oh, that's
Yeah, we're gonna make it.
All right.
All right. So this story is pretty much wrapped up, right?
He had his last orgasm.
Where do we go now? So Highlander 2 was a movie that they made to be a direct sequel to Highlander 1. However, I would say they were very Dragon Ball Z in their approach to how they wanted to make their sequel.
By whatever
In-
do you mean?
In the same way that Dragon Ball was a mostly fantastical, mythological style story that they decided to make into aliens from other planets, so too did they decide in Highlander 2 to get a little bit funky with the lore.
Oh shit, are immortals aliens?
So
Is that why they just appeared on people's doorsteps?
So
let's open Highlander 2, a completely non-canonical story that every other piece of media decided to ignore.
Oh.
We are opening to a scene that is 500 years ago and also on a different planet called Zeist.
Zeist.
It is
Yes.
both in the
Is it spelled with
past
an X or a Z?
a Z. It is both in the past and on a different planet.
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
It's not really that
There-
long, but okay.
A bunch of guys are collecting together because they want to overthrow this guy named General Katana, who is an evil dude who's been oppressing them.
Is his name Masamune?
No.
Okay.
There is one guy who's kind of leading the group, and he is Sean Connery, and his name
He came
is,
back?
and his name is Ramirez. So he's an alien from the planet Zeist who is Scottish, whose name is Ramirez. That's
Why the
just
hell
his,
did he say he was Egyptian?
That's just his name, Fran. It's Ramirez. And he says, we need to overthrow General Katana, but I will not be the one who leads you. And then one random guy's like, but who's going to lead us then? He's like, let him introduce himself. And he points into the crowd, and he points towards Christopher Lambert. That's right. We have Connor McLeod in the middle of these alien guys, and he's like, you will be the one who leads us. And he's like, why me? And because we're both immortals. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
And then they fight this war against General Katana, and then they lose because they didn't do a very good job. So they get captured, and this is fucking 10 minutes of the movie is devoted to this. It blows my fucking mind. All right, so they get captured, and they get sent to this like tribunal, and then in the tribunal they're like, so you are immortal, obviously. So are, Connor, you're immortal, Ramirez, you're immortal, and General Katana, you're an immortal, but we have a special punishment that we do for immortals who rise up against us. We send them to a distant planet called Earth to get reborn as immortals, where they must fight in the game until there's only one of them left. As we do with all immortals, we send them to different time periods and with different names, so that eventually they all fight in the game, and eventually there can be only one.
How many times did they try to overthrow the government on this planet for there to be that many immortals on Earth?
So not only are immortals aliens from a different planet, but they're also a subset of those aliens that just happen to also be immortals.
Right, yeah.
And if they step out of line with the government, then they get banished to the Earth.
You would assume the government would be run by those immortals, but
the Earth in the future, 500 years in the future, on a different planet called Earth, and you have to go compete in the game. The game is you have to be the last one standing. If you're the last one standing, then you get to get the prize. The prize is you can live and die on Earth as a mortal, or you can come back to Zeist as an immortal with your faith restored, because they say that the immortals are demonic entities. They're like, you are faithless heathens, that the immortal spirit inside of you is a demon. If you win the game on Earth in the future, then you can come back here and your faith is restored.
Are the aliens, I have two options here, either Catholic or Mormon? Because the Mormons have something about an alien planet also.
That's the thing, Fran. They can't fight on holy ground.
Yeah.
What does that mean to an alien?
Exactly.
Is Christ?
Yeah.
So is this
absolutely.
the actual planet that Mormons are referring to, possibly?
For sure. But
what is that planet called?
I want to be 100% clear, Fran, because you were being a little bit sassy earlier about, Highlander 1 sounds like it was written by a 40-year-old on cocaine. No, this one is what it sounds like when it's written by a 40-year-old on cocaine. This is, you can see.
The first movie was the coked up 40-year-old's 15-year-old journal entries. And then the sequel was,
this is what he always had intended. This is a great time to tie into our previous episode. This movie, Highlander 2, is listed as one of the worst movies that's ever been made. I agree with this. However, this is one of the same lists that also includes the Super Mario Brothers
Oh.
1993 movie. This movie is so much more bad than that. Like,
Is it
I
higher?
think that the 1993 Super Mario Brothers movie is actually a hidden gem. People just didn't understand it. They couldn't appreciate it. I think that movie is actually good. This movie is actually one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my whole life.
And you've watched some bad movies.
And I've watched a lot of bad movies. And keeping in mind, they got a lot of the original cast to come back for this
Which
movie.
is surprising. Did the first one do well in the box office or something?
Yeah.
People love the first one. This
Okay.
one, maybe not so much. I don't even know if people know this one exists. But
How many years after the first one did this one release?
so the first one was an 80s movie,
Yeah.
85. This one, 90s movie. I think it was 1982.
See, that's the issue. People aren't as coked up anymore.
Oh, yeah, right.
They weren't ready to.
They
They
started to
couldn't
get
receive this.
So let's fly through some of this stuff because I don't want to talk about literally everything, but also it is fucking bananas. Anyway, the Immortals come from a distant planet. They are sent to the Earth via tractor laser beam kind of thing,
Of
where they
course,
just
alien
dissolve.
technology.
Right, they just like show up on Earth.
Classic.
And the reasoning is they put them at different time periods so that they would not do a big fight all at once.
Because that's
I
lame.
guess.
Because that'd be lame.
Right. They want to
You
do like the
gotta-
Fortnite thing where you have to like build
Yeah.
up skills.
Do you
as go.
Yeah.
do you think? I mean, they should maybe just kind of be scanning, paying a little bit of attention to Earth, and then Ramirez could look and he'd be like, "Well, it seems like I've been on Earth for 1,500 years at this point, which maybe tells me that this insurrection we're doing is not going to go well."
Well, here's the thing. Okay. So why did Ramirez find McLeod in the first movie? Because he just kind of shows up. Because they have this like they're supposed to have this like magical attraction to each other. But in this one, it's like literally he's like, Ramirez, how will I find you? And he's like, oh, you just need to call for me, McLeod. I'll show up. I promise you. And so they already knew each other in the past life, according to this movie. And also, it's like the quickening gives you magic powers.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's even more magic because
Is
before
it magic
the
or
two
just alien?
before the two of them get sent away to Earth, Ramirez says, McLeod, if you ever need me, because he's also named McLeod. These are literally their names on the alien planet.
Yeah.
He says, McLeod, if you ever need me, you just call my name. And okay, thanks. Great. So,
Cool.
remember General Katana, the guy that
Yeah.
was like smushed this
Yeah.
uprising? He's fucking pissed off. He does not like that this happened. He says you should have just killed those guys. I can't believe you let them just live on the planet. But from their perspective, this is all happening like in real time because they just get the up. And they see McLeod get the prize at the end of the previous movie, and they're like, well, he got the prize. If he wants to, he can choose to die as a mortal on Earth, or he can come back here. And General Katana's like, I do not want him coming back here because I don't like how strong he's gotten. Because now what I've revealed is that the quickening not only gives you sort of a temporary boost to your power, but it also gives you all of the experiences of the people that
It is
you
the
killed.
Avatar.
So if you get a quickening, you become exponentially more powerful, right? Like if you quickening a guy who has like 4 quickenings under him, you get that guy's quickening and those other 4 guys' quickenings.
You quicken so hard at that point.
Those orgasms must be really fucking intense.
It
at the end. Oh my
compounds,
God.
Fran. And so he's like, I hate this guy. I'm going to send my 2 goons, who are immortals, and I'm going to go kill him. I'm going to send him to the world. I'm going to kill that guy. I hate him. He's an old man now. He's been aging normally because he's mortal now because that's part of the prize, and he's gonna do that.
Why didn't he just let him die normally then?
I fucking hate that guy.
Either or.
Because I fucking hate that guy.
This or that. Not
literally,
this and that.
Literally,
like,
Fran,
he chose to die as a mortal. He can't come to the planet.
In the movie, they also say that, and he's like, I just hate him so bad.
Okay.
So he sends his guys. He's an old man now.
It's an ego thing.
By the way, it's in the present in the movie. It's the distant future, the year 2024.
Yeah.
Shit. Fuck.
The ozone layer was burned out in 1995. Obviously.
Oh. Yep. Obviously. Yep. I remember that.
And we were all gonna die, but
mm-hmm.
Because of the prize,
yep,
Connor McLeod was able to work with a bunch of scientists on Earth to create a global shield that was able to encompass the world to block all of the solar radiation that was going to kill the entire planet because the ozone layer was gone. And so they have these satellite arrays that shield the Earth in this shield that protects it from all of the radiation from the sun.
Is Elon Musk a big fan of the Highlander series?
I don't want to know that, Fran. I don't want to know that. Do not show this episode to Elon. I don't want him to chime in.
Elon says, well, really, I think the second movie is the best of the series.
Yeah, maybe that's where his
God, if he did,
from.
if he says Highlander 2 is better than Highlander 1, I hope the internet crucifies him. But that was several years ago. Now in the future 2024, the layer over the Earth has protected the Earth, but it's in a eternal nighttime. So it's always night. You can't see the night sky because it's just darkness in the sky. Yeah. And it's always 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which
that's not how this works.
That doesn't seem like that saved the planet if that's the case. But that's
Those
another
poor
thing people
oceans.
say. Maybe they just said that because everyone in the movie looks really sweaty, which maybe they are on cocaine. But like, that's part of the. I saw that on the wiki, so that's part of it. And so the Earth is encompassed in this shield. It's always night, and there is a. Remember in Final Fantasy VII where there was like a bunch of freedom fighters who wanted to do a big, like, explosion on a factory in order to like. Same thing. They're like, we actually want to get rid of the shield for the planet because we don't think it's necessary anymore. We think that it's probably not a good idea. We want to see the stars at night.
Did the ozone layer come back?
Yeah. No, I mean, listen.
Hold on.
How long will it take for the planet to heal from the damage we've done? 10 years? 12 maybe?
20 years?
It's surely fixed by now.
Fran, the ozone layer is back.
Oh.
It's all good.
Yeah.
And actually, the thing is, the shield is run by a corporation who's run by Dr. Cox from Scrubs. That's right.
Oh my God.
He's the CEO of this big corporation. Ooh. And they don't want to bring the shield down because they charge a subscription fee to have the shield up
to all the governments.
I did not know that. I have not watched this one because it's terrible. I love that. Dr. is well, you see here, McLeod. I love
it is literally like that. Anyway, so the whole movie is about Connor, who's like, I have to bring down the shield now because we don't need it anymore. And General Katana sends in these guys to go fight him because he's like, I just wanted to get fucked up. I hate him so bad. But obviously, so McLeod kills him almost on accident. One of them gets run over by a train to get his head chopped off. And the other one, he like does the thing where he pulls a big string and the string, like he like flies under the string and he like slices his head off. And this is all like done. They have like hoverboards that they brought from their planet and they're like flying around like the Green Goblin and you can see the wires. They're very visible in every shot. And he beats these guys. And when he beats them, he quickens them, and so he becomes young again because his whole thing was he was the last immortal. But now that there's other immortals and he did a quickening on them, he is back to being his young self.
Damn.
And he gets all of the skills that he got when he was younger, but also General Katana shows up, so he's not the only one anymore. There can be only one, so now he's strong as ever because he got re-quickened because this guy sent some guys to just quicken for him.
Yep.
Once again, General Katana made a series of bad choices for himself. He let his ego get in the way of rational decision making. Truly.
He gave them a compounding and it made him quicken so hard.
Gave him too many orgasms.
Can you is all you guys think about is cum? Is that what's happening here?
That's just the orgasmic part.
Right. Yeah, fantastic. All right. So
I thought compounding was pretty.
Yeah, did you? Did you? I have to focus. I have to. There's like
you're the one who has to edit this shit later, man.
All right. He's young again. He literally does the thing. There's this like young lady, which is like so stupid. He does this thing where like flashes back to the past, and there's this like French broad that he loves in like the French Revolution times. And he's like, I want to do a big fuck on her. And then he does a big fuck on her in the French Revolution times. And then it's the same actress in the present, but she's not wearing a redhead wig. She's wearing a blonde wig. And then he's like, I want to do a big fuck on the current version. Presumably she's reincarnated. Maybe reincarnation is a thing. That could come into play later. And then he does want to do a fuck on her, and then she's like, how did you go from being an old man to being a young man? And he's like, I am an immortal, I live forever. And then she does do a big fuck on him. They do a big sex scene, and then he has to fight General Katana, who sends himself back in time to kill him. He meets up with Dr. Cox. The two of them form this like uneasy villain alliance because they're like, we want to kill McLeod. McLeod figures out that the ozone layer is repaired. He wants to take down the shield in order to free humanity from the clutches of capitalism, I guess.
It's not bad.
At one point, they have a falling out. He kills Dr. Cox and he says, "No, JD, you bastard!" and then the two of them have a fight. Chops off. It does the same thing. General Katana's way stronger the whole fight. He ends up beating him. He says there can be only one. He does a big quickening on him, and then he goes into the shield projector, which is like a big beam that comes out of the earth, and he like absorbs the quickening is kind of also like electricity, so he uses his body to like absorb the projector, which like gets rid of it all over the earth, and the earth is restored, and they're like, oh, the ozone layer's back. We can see the night sky. Everything is nice again. You save the world. It is a very bad movie. But that idea of them being aliens sent from the past to go to the future to do a big fight to figure out who gets to be the one. We're at the third movie and they throw that away. That is
it's all gone.
They literally were like, we don't want to do that anymore. In fact, what we want to do is when Ramirez died, McLeod when he got a new master who was a Japanese master who was a sorcerer, an actual sorcerer who could do real magic, and he had the ability to make illusions. He was an illusion magician.
Yes.
And he says
doesn't do tricks.
He says, now listen, the Kurgan is a problem, but there's actually an even worse guy who's gonna make even more bad jokes that we can't talk about on YouTube that are about ladies that he's gonna do. And you need to beat him. And also, the quickening, it gives you the experience of the person that you quickened. So I can't let my quickening fall into the hands of other people because then they could become magicians. And that would be bad because then they could get the power of illusion. And so he's teaching him how to make swords, and he's teaching him how to fight, and he's teaching him how to like see through illusions. And then the evil guy shows up and he's like, hey, I'm like Attila the Hun or whatever, and I'm here to take your power. And he's like, you fucking idiot. My power is already with the Highlander. That's right. He's gone. He left, and you could get my magic power, but that's not gonna matter. He's gonna beat you, and I'm gonna use my magic to bring this mountain house that I live in on top of you. And he does that, and then he gets trapped in the mountain for 500 years. Now it's the present again, and the first movie happened, but definitely the second movie didn't happen. And so now we're in the present, and in the present there's another hot archaeologist lady, and she's like digging up all this stuff, and she's like,
digging up some bones.
That's man, and then she's like, that's weird. There's all this Scottish shit in this tomb when there shouldn't be. What's the deal with that? And then obviously our boy lives in New York, but then he lives in Egypt now. He has an adopted son that doesn't really matter, but he does come up a little bit later. He says, oh, I sensed a quickening that happened somewhere. That's weird because all of the other immortals should be dead. I remember a guy who fought my old master, but not my old master, and then he made a mountain come down on him, so maybe that has something to do with it. And then he realizes, oh no, the gathering isn't over. Actually, I have to kill this guy. That guy tries to kill him on holy ground. They're in a
Buddhist.
Connor McLeod is a bit of a like. He's in a bit of an appropriator. He's in a. I can't explain this place. I don't have the time, but it's like it has a bunch of Asian influence. They do kendo in there. They do like judo in there, but also they have like a trapeze acrobatics thing going on.
Yeah.
And also they have like a Buddhist monastery in there. So I guess it's just like this is like 2000. And so I guess it's just like the Asia building. They're in the Asia building.
It's 1994, but
and so the guy comes to fight him, and he's like, you can't fight me. This is technically a Buddhist temple. And he's like, I'll be the judge of that. And then he starts fighting him. And you're like, whoa, what the heck? This guy really is breaking the rules. But then he's going to kill Connor with a sweep of his blade. But then the Buddha statue like lights up and like prevents him from doing that.
Okay.
So are all religions real? And actually their deity prevents all of these guys from fighting on their holy ground? I don't know. He doesn't finish him off there because the Buddha statue thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why he was testing his luck, is because not all religions are real. It turns out Buddhism, that one is real. Can't do it here. Yeah. Bummer.
Can't do it.
So he uses his illusion powers to be Connor, and he kidnaps his kid from Egypt. Remember I said he had a kid. Yeah. And then he takes him off. He's like, Connor, you better come get me. I'm gonna kill your kid. And then they fight, and then he trained with the guy who did illusions, and then he learned how to fight through illusions, and then he kills that guy. And then he quickens him, and he's like, I did it, I'm the one. And that's pretty much that movie. People say it's a rehash of the first movie.
Fun fact, I think the sorcerer guy is actually Uncle Iroh from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. He also talks about doing a bad R word on women.
The sorcerer?
Yeah.
Aww.
Oh, the sorcerer? No, not the sorcerer.
No,
the
evil
sorcerer.
Guy. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, he's
Uncle
good.
Iroh is the sorcerer.
All right, Uncle Iroh is pure.
Yeah, he did that a lot. I think he was also the Asian sorcerer in Conan the Barbarian, if I remember correctly.
Well, the good news is that Mako is actually Japanese, so they actually casted a Japanese person for the Japanese guy. I'm proud of them for 1994.
So that is the movie that's supposed to build off of the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Now we're into Wikipedia articles.
There was a series, Fran.
Yeah.
So I don't want to talk too much about it. Maybe we'll just talk about it being silly. But the thing about Immortals is in the first movie, and even in the second movie, and a bit in the third movie, they were kind of special, right? They just like showed up, but you assume that they were around forever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're part of the game.
Yeah.
They decided to make, first off, they decided to make an animated series, which featured Connor McLeod for a little bit of the series. It involved an immortal trying to get the knowledge from all the other immortals so that they could beat an ultimate immortal evil. And in that one, it was a little bit less serious. Like I believe the main character would like share, quote unquote, with another immortal where they would both touch the hilt of the same sword, and instead of doing a quickening where they killed them by cutting their head off, they would like get the knowledge and experience through the sword.
Right, yeah, they would just rub each other's hilts until they quickened.
How dare you. But they did have to beat a bad guy who did cut people's head off in the cartoon. So it was a little more towards children, but it still did that thing where it's like, well, violence isn't not for children.
True.
There was also an anime that...
When? How recent was this anime?
God, I want to say early 2000s, but I didn't look it up or nothing.
Really?
But it was God, I want to use the word good, but that's not quite right. But it was so it's set in like it's an alternate history one, I guess, or maybe not, I don't know how their fucking timeline goes, but it's like in post-apocalyptia.
Yes.
And it's really really weird because it's made by this studio that only knows how to make a few different character designs, and so
I'm looking at this.
It's so
yeah,
it's so strange because if you watch two of their movies, it looks like they hired the same actor, but like but that's not how animation works. But they were just like, I don't know, we know how to draw a girl, let's just have that be girl. And they do a fight.
This is the part where I have to bring up that in the cartoon, they live in the post-apocalypse because, quote, a meteor struck the planet, which ignited all of the nuclear warheads on the planet turned it into an apocalyptic wasteland. So not only did a meteor strike, but it also made all of the nukes trigger.
It was a bad one.
Oh my.
It was no good. Anyway, flying through. Okay, so where in the series, turns out there's another McLeod, even though every single movie talks about how Connor McLeod is the last of the McLeod clan. Actually, there was another McLeod who lived a couple generations after. And he, funnily enough, was an immortal. He also continued to live on through the years.
Okay.
So the series is about this other McLeod. So his name's Duncan McLeod, which he is also got the sword, the katana.
Oh.
But by the way, as they say later, an immortal is a regular person until they have their quote first death, and then they're resurrected for the first time, and then
that's how their immortal things happen.
However you have your first death, that's what you look like for the rest of forever.
Gotcha.
You come back to life as that. And
interesting.
Anyway, Duncan
so
McLeod.
Presumably, this Duncan one just hadn't had his first death because he was sent to a different time period.
He also lived like 60 years. Well, no, the whole like being sent to a different time period, that's over.
Oh, okay.
Now we're in the thing where since Gilgamesh, you remember Gilgamesh? He was an immortal. That's how he did all that cool stuff. And then there was a guy.
His whole story was about how he's not an immortal. That's that's his whole thing.
I don't know.
So there's Gilgamesh. He was the first hero, famously. He was an immortal, and some guy saw him being an immortal, and
Uh-huh.
they invented a group called the Watchers because they wanted to watch these immortals. They thought that they were too dangerous. They realized that the immortals were playing this game called The Game,
Right.
where they had to be the last one standing, and they never wanted there to be only one guy standing. They thought that that one person would be too powerful, so the Watchers were created. And then there was also Duncan MacLeod, who was also an immortal. He also got to bear the moniker Highlander because he's from Scotland, I guess. He decided at one point that he was going to do a series, even though his like great cousin was the Connor MacLeod. He was also a MacLeod who happened to be an immortal. He did a bunch of immortal stuff in the present time. He did meet his forebearer at one point who taught him how to do some stuff that happened in both the pilot of the series but also in the fourth movie, which is where Connor MacLeod decides that he and Duncan MacLeod had his whole series, so obviously there's a lot of character growth there. I don't want to get into it too much, because I'm sure it was really good, but he wants to impregnate his Bonnie lass Anna, but he can't because he has seed bad because he's an immortal. And Anna wants to be his Bonnie lass, but she wants a baby. But he turns her into an immortal. But I guess if you're an immortal woman, then you don't worry about it, friend. If you're an immortal woman, then that's less the big deal than if you're an immortal man. I don't know how he turns her immortal. Something about showing blood. I think it's vampire rules now. Anyway, so he in the fourth movie he meets up with Connor MacLeod. Connor MacLeod went off into hiding because he didn't want to play the game anymore. Because the game obviously is you fight till there's only one left. One guy was really mad at Connor because he killed him in the 1500s, but he was also an immortal, so he actually didn't die. But he also killed his dad, I think, and so he decided that he wanted to do eternal revenge. He was looking for Connor MacLeod. Connor said, we can't beat this guy because in this reality, if you do a quickening on a person, then you get all their skills and experience. So basically, the more quickenings you have, the stronger you are. But in that instance, the guy they were trying to kill had like 500 quickenings, and those guys only had like 200, maybe 100. So Connor's like, you have to kill me. And this is Christopher Lambert again, reprising his role in this movie.
Good for him.
That was, kind of handing off the torch, and he's like, you have to kill me. And then in that moment, he makes him kill him. He does a quickening on him. He absorbs him, and then he fights the big baddie of the series. And in the series, they do a big fight. Like, it all leads up to this big fight. He was like the guy behind the scenes the whole time as they do the series. And then they do this big fight, and then it looks like the bad guy beats Duncan MacLeod, but then Connor MacLeod makes himself, like, projects himself into his body, and he's like, I am here too. You can't beat both of us. And so the two of them fight together, and they defeat this evil guy, and then they beat the evil guy. And that is how the fourth movie ends. And then the fifth movie is, quite honestly, I looked it up. There's the thing called the source, and the source is what gives all the immortal their ability to be immortal. But the more closer you are to the source, the less immortal you are. You can die, but the more powerful you are, you're stronger. And then there's a guy called the Guardian, and the Guardian guards the source, and he doesn't want anyone to get to the source. But Duncan is there, the new guy.
Yeah.
And he's going to get to the source.
Of course.
But the source, Anna's there, and because she's like his ex, and she's like, I wanted to have a baby, so I want to go get a mortal husband, but it turns out I just want to have a baby with you, even though that's not possible.
Thought he turned her immortal.
He did turn her immortal.
She's like, listen, I've been quickening, and I've been compounding on compounding, but I've just realized it's actually just you I wanted to be with all along. So much quickening I did without you, though. So much.
Basically the truth. And then at the end of it, Duncan kills the Guardian, and then the source, it turns out that the source meant when they said that there can be only one, they meant that there can be only one who truly embodies the source. And then when they beat the Guardian, Duncan and Anna came together and they made a baby, and then they said that baby is the only one. They are the one who was made because they beat the source. This is a disaster because I could spend 5 hours talking about this bullshit and it still wouldn't make sense because it doesn't make. They didn't. They literally were like,
when Fran makes an episode, I feel like she likes to be like, I have clearly outlined the things that I am going to teach you and have taught you them.
Yes.
When I do an episode, I try to be like, I have maybe not given you every piece of information, but I've wrapped it in a nice bow. I feel like CJ's episodes many times is him like, I have descended into madness, and at some point
what can I do?
I simply
you guys give me the most bullshit things.
I did not bestow this upon you. This is Ethan's fault.
I can't understand. I'm looking at, okay, hold on, wait. I just saw on the wiki, I'm on the Connor McLeod page, and there's a section called The Return of Masamune. So I think Masamune is also number.
Yeah, you could.
The first one, honestly, in a lot of ways, charming, has an okay pole fantasy element. You want to. You will allow yourself to like suspend your disbelief and be in this world and like, you know, enjoy this thing. It's like, oh, they can't fight on holy ground. That's like kind of a weird, quirky rule so that you can just have characters talk while they're in a church. Like that's really the only reason. But then it kept going and it kept going. And they're like, we have to make more rules. Actually, there are a whole bunch of immortals. There's these group called the Watchers. They're making sure that no immortal gets too strong because they don't want one immortal to win the prize.
Man.
There's these other group called the Hunters, which are part of the Watchers. They were like, oh, we should kill all the immortals. And actually, mortals can kill an immortal. And then if they do that, then their quickening is lost. And also,
so what I'm getting is that when it comes to Highlander movies that CJ likes, there can be only one.
That is a gross overstatement as well. I liked 1/4 of the first one. And it was the part where he said, my love, Shakuki. She was Japanese, she gave me the sword.
And he talked about how he was from the Hidden Leaf Village.
Yeah.
Fran, is there anything that doesn't make sense to you? Is there anything you want me to close out for you?
I'm still a little confused about the woman not Highlanders. See, this is the issue. That's also an issue here. It's called Highlander. And yet only the one dude is called a Highlander, but it has nothing to do with him being from Scotland because he's not actually from Scotland. He's an alien.
Well,
no, Fran,
right.
we got rid of that part. That's done.
You ignore that part.
But still, he's not actually from Scotland. Then still,
he is, Fran. The second one doesn't matter. It's not real. It's all fake. Like, I don't know.
Like that one season of Roseanne where they decided that whole season didn't exist because they just had a dream that they won the lottery.
Yeah, love that.
Actually did.
Fran.
Loved it. I mean,
did you just do a deep cut I didn't understand?
Huh?
Never
you don't know that?
No, that's a good one. I mean, I was gonna do an episode on that, and now we can't. But you know, I guess my Roseanne episode will never be.
Well, she's problematic now, anyway.
You know what else is problematic? This episode, which is over. That's right. That was my sequence to the end. Guys, thank you so much for listening. I feel like I am livid, but also I'm so glad we got to do this for everyone here. We, of course, want to thank Gailstorm Kitsune for doing the artwork for our channel, and thank Apajo for the intro and outro songs. Guys, I have been delighted to see all of the reviews, all of the thumbs up, the 5-star ratings, all that good stuff that has been on the channel. If you could please continue that. That means a lot to us, especially as a small channel. We really appreciate that. We love to see that stuff. If you want to send us some ideas for videos, or just want to say that we're doing a good job, we're on Blue Sky or at Cooking with Spices. And we're on X / Twitter. Don't worry about that as much, but we're at Spices with. And we're on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, that's obvious. We love your thumbs up and comments and subscribes. We like all that shit. We have a fun time doing this. I hope you guys have a fun time listening. I hope to do some more in the future, but thank you again. It just, we went through some of this stuff lately, and it makes me feel really good to see what you guys have to say. So thanks again. And I'm sure we'll have a very good idea for a video in a couple weeks. But until then, I've been CJ.
And I've been Ethan.
And I've been Fran.
All right, so Fran, I want you to imagine the Highlander is now cast as Henry Cavill, but who is going to be Ramirez? It's Sean Connery still. He's CGI'd in.
Oh, no.
Listen, if he's CG'd in, and it's me, it's like, yeah, it's me, Henry Cavill. Let me tell you about what it was like in Spain.
Which origin story of the Immortals do you think they'll take?
It's the one we did right now. That's
we just did it.